It's Ash from Super Videos, back for another video for Season 10 of The Walking Dead. In this video, I'll be comparing the Negan backstory from the comics called Here's Negan with the TV version, Season 10 Episode 22, the final Season 10 bonus episode of the same name. I'll be giving my overall review of the episode and explaining which one I like more and why. So stay tuned, we'll be right back to talk more about it. Alright, before we get into this, as always, if you're not a subscriber and enjoy the content, subscribe to join our community, share and smash the like button, and press the bell to be notified when we upload. So with that said, let's dive right into it. Now, at the end of my reaction to the Here's Negan episode, I said that this was slightly underwhelming given how much it was hyped up and given the expectations that I had as a comic reader. I got a lot of people who disagreed with me and they just took the first segment of what I said and ran with it, and they said that it wasn't a disappointing episode like I made it out to be. Well, here's the thing. Comparing this episode to the comic version may actually not be a fair comparison. It's not quite the same. Like what they did in the comic version is different than what they did in the TV version. They added their own flavor to the TV version because in many ways it seems like not only did they dive deeper into a component of Negan's backstory, but leave the door open for future installments of Negan-centric stories that would bring us a lot closer to what they did in the comic version. And there's a possibility that they could actually go far beyond what they did in the comic version in a future Negan-centric story in the TV version. Because if we really think about it, Here's Negan has four major pieces. One is showcasing the relationship that Negan and Lucille had and how her death pushed Negan towards a much darker direction, or at least how it triggered him to a point where he went over the edge. This first piece was exceptionally done in the TV version, and they went far and beyond what the comic achieved as far as the Lucille and Negan relationship. This is where Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Hilary Burton's chemistry elevated the story and made the Lucille and Negan story even more impactful and powerful than the comic version. Also, the decision to have Lucille spend her last days at home rather than in the hospital, surviving into the apocalypse, and finally taking her own life were remixes that also made the story better than the comic version. The comic just scratched the surface when it comes to Negan and Lucille's story, but the TV version made this story the key element of the episode. However, this is not the only piece to Negan's backstory. Before I actually jump into that though, two other things that they altered in the TV version, which I think made sense and made the story better, were having Negan receive the leather jacket as an anniversary gift from Lucille, giving it a much more sentimental value to Negan rather than how the comics did it where Negan just came across it, and also having an ex-savior, Lara, giving Negan the bat that turns into Lucille the Bat instead of having him just take it from a random survivor like the comics, made that story a lot better. And I would say at the end of the day, those two changes were positive changes from what they did in the comics. But going back to what I was saying earlier, the Negan and Lucille relationship is not the only part of Negan's backstory. Other pieces to Negan's backstory are the event or events that prompted Negan to become who he was, to rule with an iron fist, and what happened to him that made him become as brutal as he was. Also, the story about how Negan found the initial group who would later become the Saviors, and the story of how he eventually became the leader of the Saviors, were things that the comic version did a lot better. And also in the comic version, they actually explored how and why Negan became the brutal leader of the formidable Saviors. The comic actually had important and key saviors cameo like Dwight and Sherry, and even scratched the surface at how the saviors found the sanctuary and so on. In the TV version, on the other hand, all of that was trickled down to a cameo from an ex-savior Laura. So obviously the TV version passed through so much story that the comic version had. Now the good news is that the door is wide open for them to explore this side of the story later on in either a Negan spin-off, movie, or even in a Tales of the Walking Dead episode, or multiple episodes. This then of course means that they can do a lot more than what the comics did. And there's even an opportunity for them to continue on the story just like the comic did with Negan Lives. And the fact that Laura and the Doctor in 1022 didn't necessarily join Negan at the end of that episode makes it even more likely that they will be circling back to this moment at some point in the future and telling us the story about how the Saviors formed in the first place. With that said, they had the opportunity to have more prominent Saviors cameo, like Simon or Dwight, which obviously they were planning to do, but because of filming conflicts, it didn't quite happen, so we can't really blame them for it. But how awesome would it have been to see Negan rescuing Simon or Dwight from the biker gang? That would have been pretty cool to see. But I feel like they made up for that to an extent by including so many awesome Easter eggs and callbacks in this episode, which I actually did a video on. So go check it out if you're interested and if you missed it. So as far as season 10 episode 22 goes, it was most definitely the best episode of season 10 bonus bundle. I don't think there's a lot of fans who would disagree with me on that. Also, it was arguably top 3 in season 10 in general. The reason I don't put it higher up is because it was still a little thin in scope due to the circumstances and the restrictions that they had. But in the grand scheme of things, I don't agree that it was the best episode ever. There are tons of episodes that were far, far better. Even episodes that were smaller in scope and were closer in comparison to the Here's Negan episode in that sense. So that's pretty much my review and comparison of Here's Negan. What are your thoughts? Share them in the comment section below. Share the video and smash the like button. Press the bell to receive notifications when there's an upload. And last but not least, if you're not a subscriber and are still here, you probably should consider joining our community. That's it for this video. See you next time for another super video.